The Israeli Air Force showed up at the double funeral of Hassan Nasrallah and his deputy Hashem Safi el-Din in Beirut in Lebanon, flying low over the crowd of hundreds of thousands of mourners shouting "Death to America, death to Israel," just to let them know who has the power to reach out and touch who. Just to make the point absolutely clear, a military source told media portals that these aircrafts were the same ones which carried out the strike that led to Nasrallah's elimination. The IDF also published previously classified footage of the strike to mark the occasion, but that's not all. A day before the funeral, the Air Force carried out several strikes on military structures in southern Lebanon in which Hezbollah activity was identified. While this was happening, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun was meeting with visiting Iranian officials and told them plainly that the Lebanese were tired and fed up with other peoples fighting their wars on our land. He also told the Speaker of the Iranian parliament in the same meeting that we have paid too high a price for the Palestinian cause. And meanwhile, in Israel, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is taking a different approach to Hamas, delaying the release of hundreds of security prisoners in response to Hamas's violations of the ceasefire agreement. And at the same time, there is an effort that is being made to extend the hostage deal until the end of Ramadan, the holy month in Islam. The Trump administration in the United States backs the delay in releasing prisoners, saying it is an appropriate response to the coffin processions of the Bibas children in Gaza and other humiliating spectacles surrounding the release of hostages. And a senior Hamas official responded by claiming that these ceremonies do not include insulting the prisoners, but reflect generous human interaction with them. Meanwhile, there is an assessment in the intelligence echelon that Hamas will not give up the remaining hostages without intense fighting, and Israel will be obliged to return to combat in Gaza very soon. And even before that, there is already heavy combat taking place in northern Samaria, in the cities of Jenin and Tulkarem. The security sweeps are stepping up, and a platoon of IDF tanks has been deployed to the vicinity of Jenin for the first time in 22 years. This is part of a peak tension in the territories after last week's explosive device attack on buses, which miraculously did not lead to disaster in central Israel. The defense minister instructed the IDF to prepare for a prolonged stay in the terror camps that the IDF has cleared as part of the extensive activity to thwart terror, as 26 suspected terrorists were arrested in the Palestinian territories over the last 24 hours. Further to the south, for the first time, the Houthis in Yemen fired a surface-to-air missile at an American fighter jet, missing their target, but nonetheless escalating tensions with Washington. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 507 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Iraqi militias, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the control of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to invite you to click on the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks to you, we are spreading the truth, and every subscriber gives us a huge push forward. So stay tuned to the truth from Israel. We start today's report in the Gaza Strip, following the shocking weekend in which the murderous terrorist organization Hamas showed its true face once again, setting a new standard for outrageous cruelty. It is impressive in the way that even after so many displays of barbarism and evil, they still manage to find new ways to sicken and horrify the entire world. This latest display involved the handing over of coffins filled with human remains to the Red Cross. one of which was supposed to be the remains of Shiri Bibas, but somehow they managed to get that one mixed up. They also put the names of her two sons, Ariel and Kfir, on the wrong coffins, and last but not least, they gave the Red Cross keys to unlock the coffins, but they were the wrong keys, so the coffins had to be opened using crowbars and hacksaws. The next day, after the forensic tests showed that the remains in the coffin marked as holding Shiri were determined to contain someone else, the remains of Shiri were handed over. But Hamas wasn't done. On Saturday, they released 6 more hostages and also brought 2 other hostages to the release ceremony so they could watch and also film a video showing them reciting lines that Hamas had written for them, designed to put pressure on the Israeli government. And in response to all of this, 2 ministerial discussions were held in the last 24 hours in Israel, and it was decided to delay the release of 602 Palestinian security prisoners who were supposed to be released on Sunday as part of the ceasefire agreement. A statement emerging from the meetings said that Israel does not want to terminate the deal, but at the same time, it will not remain silent about Hamas's blatant violations. One of the ministers proposed an idea, in light of the terror organization's severe violations, to demand as compensation the release of a living hostage whose health condition is complex, alongside with the remains of 4 fallen hostages expected to be returned on Thursday. And alongside efforts to extend the ceasefire through the upcoming month of Ramadan, there is also a move to demand the return of more remains of hostages who have died in captivity by Hamas, but the statements make it clear that living hostages must also be returned on a speed-up schedule in order to move forward with the ceasefire. In addition, Israel demands a clear guarantee that the next release of Israeli hostages will take place without Hamas's displays of force and without degrading ceremonies. On Sunday evening, the White House issued a statement referring for the first time to Israel's decision to postpone the prisoners' release, saying that this is an appropriate response and that President Donald Trump supports it. And earlier on Sunday, Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, said that he would visit the region this week, apparently on Wednesday, and that the Americans expect Phase B to be carried out. And in an interview with CNN, the envoy said that Netanyahu is motivated by the right considerations. Hamas cannot be part of any government in Gaza. Our response was issued by the senior Hamas official, which left me wondering what planet he lives on. He said, "These ceremonies do not include insulting the prisoners, but reflect a generous human interaction with them. We ask the mediators and the international community to assume their responsibility and pressure the occupation to implement the agreement and release the prisoners without delay. In my humble opinion, it is time for everyone to stop kidding themselves and face the reality about who these Hamas terrorists are and what we're dealing with." And on that note, it should be recalled that under Phase A of the hostage deal, we are still waiting for the release of 4 bodies held by Hamas. Including them, in total, 63 hostages are still in captivity in the Gaza Strip, of whom 36 have been declared deceased by Israel. And among the 620 Palestinian terrorists who were supposed to be released, there are 71 who were sentenced to life in prison and 60 others who were sentenced to lengthy prison terms. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development in the arrangement for the release of the hostages who are held in the Gaza Strip by the terrible Hamas terrorists. And, as always, we ask you to help us by sharing our videos on YouTube so everyone can see what is happening in Israel. Follow us on social media and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we need you. Together, we can continue spreading the truth and unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. A moment before we move on to the funeral of the leader of the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon, and to how the IDF reminded this terrorist group that the blood of their leaders is on their own hands, I want to shift the focus to the hottest combat arena that is active right now. I'm talking about Judea and Samaria. Everyone agrees that last Thursday, a miracle saved Israel from what might have been one of its most difficult days yet. Palestinian terrorists placed explosive devices on 3 buses, which then exploded at the wrong time when nobody was abroad. Another explosive device was found and defused before it could explode. This incident was accompanied by graffiti found on the walls of several buildings in Gush Dan, which said, "Revenge from Tulkarem." In response, the IDF is escalating its military activity in Judea and Samaria, 32 days after the start of Operation Iron Wall. This includes the deployment of tanks in the area of the village of Mukbelach near Jenin, as confirmed by eyewitnesses' reports by Palestinian residents. And on Sunday evening, the IDF confirmed that it had transferred a tank platoon from Brigade 188 from the northern arena around Gaza to northern Samaria. A military source said that bringing tanks into the fighting in Jenin is sending a strong message regarding Israel's determination following the IDF's identification of Iranian involvement in what's happening in northern Samaria and the understanding that the terror organizations in the West Bank are determined to carry out significant attacks in Israeli territory. Elsewhere, IDF forces announced a 48-hour curfew in the town of Kabatia, south of Jenin. And during yesterday's operations, the forces acted in Jenin, Tulkarem, Nur Shams as part of the extensive activity to thwart terrorism. 26 suspects were arrested and weapons and various armaments were captured. On Sunday morning, Defense Minister Israel Katz instructed the IDF to prepare for a prolonged stay in the cleared areas for the coming year and not to allow terrorism to re-emerge. This is all part of Operation Iron Wall to eliminate the security threats in northern Samaria, which will soon be expanded with additional IDF units being deployed to support the border police, Shin Bet, and already deployed IDF units. And in a related story, as part of the security forces' ongoing efforts to thwart terror and crime in the Jordan Valley area, IDF forces, in cooperation with the Israeli police, succeeded in preventing the smuggling of about 15 M16 type weapons into Israeli territory. The assessment is that the weapons were intended for use by criminal elements or terror organizations and could have constituted a real threat to the security of Israel's citizens. We will continue to report on Judea and Samaria, which is the hottest sector at the moment in this war. Speaking of which, when disaster strikes Israel, whether it's a rocket attack, a terror incident, or a sudden emergency, Magen David Adom is the first on the scene. Their ambulances race through the streets and their dedicated medics work tirelessly to save lives. As I told you just days ago, 3 buses exploded and by a stroke of fate, they were empty. Yet we know that this isn't the last crisis we will face here in Israel, and urgent medical help is always needed. So Magen David Adom cannot do it alone. They rely on generous support from people like you. Your donation isn't just a number. It funds ambulances, provides essential medical supplies, and supports a team that stands ready to act at any moment. If you care about Israel and believe in saving lives, please go to www.savelifeisrael.com and donate today. Every second counts and every life matters. Thank you. Now, let's get back into the news. The Israeli Air Force showed up at Nasrallah's funeral in Lebanon, sending a message to everyone that Israel is ready to strike at any moment and at any place. Almost 5 months after his assassination, a massive funeral was held on Sunday in Beirut for Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. Hundreds of thousands of supporters of the terrorist organization gathered in a huge stadium in the Lebanese capital and in other locations in the city for the ceremony. A memorial service was also held for Nasrallah's successor, Hashem Safi el-Din, who was assassinated a few days after Nasrallah. After the stadium ceremony, crowds accompanied Nasrallah's coffin to his burial site in the Dahya neighborhood. For Hezbollah, this was an important show of strength after the tremendous blows it suffered in the fighting against Israel. However, it ended up being a display of their weakness instead, because the IDF sent 2 F-15S and 2 F-35S. the very same aircrafts which had dropped the bombs which led to Nasrallah's termination, to the skies over Beirut during the ceremony. In footage of the speech given by the current Hezbollah Secretary General, Naim Qassem, sonic booms from the jets can be heard as they flew at low altitudes. Qassem wasn't at the ceremony in person, but he was at an undisclosed location and gave his speech by a video uplink. This was done either as a tribute to Nasrallah's habit of sending his speeches to the world this way, or maybe because Qassem thought it was prudent for his own survival. The IDF also published footage of the flyovers, which is notable since they usually don't release such footage of operational activities. By the way, flying that low over Lebanese territory would have made these Israeli aircrafts an easy target for Hezbollah if it had any anti-aircraft capability left. I think that was one of the points that the IDF was trying to make there. In any case, as the Israeli aircraft circled overhead, the crowds chanted, "At your service, Nasrallah," along with more traditional chants of "Death to America, death to Israel." And Defense Minister Israel Katz quickly confirmed the assessment that this was a deliberate display of power and stated, "The Israeli Air Force planes now circling the skies of Beirut above Hassan Nasrallah's funeral are sending a clear message. Whoever threatens to destroy Israel and attacks Israel, this will be his end. You will mourn at funerals, and we will celebrate victories." Elsewhere, a statement by the IDF on the social media network X stated, "Today is Hassan Nasrallah's funeral. Today, the world is a better place." The IDF also revealed new footage from the assassination of Nasrallah in the strike at several locations. One can see the moments in which the Hezbollah Secretary General was eliminated, along with Ali Karaki, the commander of the Southern Front, and additional senior commanders in the terrorist organization's underground headquarters. An Israeli military official later revealed that some of the planes participating in the aerial show in Beirut also took part in Nasrallah's assassination last September. According to him, the flyover was intended to convey a clear message that we are up here observing and that we will strike at any moment that we need to, wherever we need to. And on that note, in the last 24 hours, the IDF has carried out several strikes at various locations in Lebanon. This included a strike in the Baalbek area, which is considered the strategic rear of the Hezbollah terrorist organization, with the town located on the border with Syria and from which many weapons are smuggled. Other strikes hit rocket launching sites and ammunition depots all over southern Lebanon. The IDF stated that the activities carried out at these locations by Hezbollah constitute a violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. The combination of Israel's firepower and precise intelligence capability should send a message to every arch-terrorist who wants to harm Israel that our patient and systematic approach will lead to the elimination of everyone who means to harm us. In the context of the funeral of Nasrallah, President Joseph Aoun met with a delegation of visiting Iranian officials over the weekend and made some dramatic statements in relation to the funeral of Nasrallah and the general situation in the country of Lebanon. The Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Gilbaf, conveyed greetings to the President of Lebanon from Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. He extended an invitation for an official visit to Tehran and congratulated Aoun on his appointment. Gilbaf emphasized Iran's willingness to collaborate with Arab and Islamic countries in rebuilding what was destroyed in the strikes in Lebanon. And President Aoun, for his part, said, "We are tired of other people's wars on our land. I agree with you that countries should not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. The best way to deal with any aggression is Lebanon's unity." Lebanon has paid too high a price for the Palestinian cause, he added, expressing his hope that this cause would reach a just solution. He also expressed Lebanon's desire to create the best possible relations with Tehran for the benefit of the two countries and peoples. The Iranian parliament speaker arrived for the funeral together with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on a direct flight this morning from Tehran in what appears to be the end of the ban that the Lebanese government and authorities had imposed on flights from Iran following Israel's warnings about transferring funds to Hezbollah on commercial flights. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on these developments moving forward. As always, we ask you to help us spread the truth by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. And most importantly, click on that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. I also want to invite you to visit our website, tbnisrael.com, for news updates in between the videos. We work hard to bring you all the latest updates so you can stay informed and guide your prayers for the people and land of Israel. And speaking of the region, 3 American defense officials announced in the last 24 hours that the Iranian-backed Houthi group in Yemen had fired surface-to-air missiles at an American F-16 aircraft as well as an unmanned UAV in the last few days. And according to the report on Fox News, the surface-to-air missile was launched at an American fighter jet by a terrorist organization during its flight over the shores of Yemen in the Red Sea. Although the missile did not hit its target, this is a significant escalation in the military interactions between the Houthis and the American Navy and Air Force. In the highest ranks of the United States military, there is a debate regarding how to address the Houthis, who are returned to the U.S. State Department's list of terrorist organizations by the Trump administration in late January. The first approach speaks of carrying out targeted operations, preventative operations, while the second approach focuses on defense and on the terrorist organization's infrastructure and weapon stockpiles. Senior military officials estimate that in time, a Houthi missile may strike a ship of the American Navy, which could cause devastating injuries and damage to assets such as aircraft carriers and destroyers that are operating in the Red Sea. Recall that recently, the Houthis kidnapped employees of the United Nations organization and have made numerous attacks on international shippings in the Red Sea, as well as launching ballistic missiles and drones at Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on every development. So please continue to spread the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, pray. Pray for the people of Israel. Pray for our hostages who are held in the Gaza Strip by the terrible hands of the Hamas terrorists. Pray for the IDF soldiers that are defending us in this cold weather. It's snowing here in Israel, in the mountains, in other parts. And most importantly, guys, please unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. And God will win this war, because He's on our side.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.